This video of mysteries from history will bring you across the globe and through the centuries, introducing you to enigmas that have puzzled scholars, intrigued investigators, and captured the public's imagination. From the ghostly murmurs of vanished civilizations to chilling tales of inexplicable events, these mysteries have withstood the onslaught of time, maintaining their veil of secrecy. As you watch through, remember, every mystery is a door waiting to be opened, a question yearning for an answer. Will you be the one to solve the unsolvable? I guess you'll have to watch and find out. These are 30 famous historical mysteries that continue to baffle us. Who killed Elizabeth Short? Elizabeth Short was a 22-year-old waitress and aspiring actress whose life was cut tragically short in 1947 in the most grotesque way possible, making her name forever synonymous with the name Black Dahlia. She had been brutally murdered, with her body cut in half and posed in a ghastly manner. The Black Dahlia case has remained unsolved for over 70 years, becoming one of the most infamous murder mysteries in American history. One of the most intriguing theories is that Short was killed by a doctor, as her body was drained of blood and surgical techniques had been used in the murder. Doctors including George Hill Hodel Jr. and Walter Bailey have been proposed as suspects, although there is little concrete evidence. Another suspect was Mark Hansen, a nightclub owner who Short lived with for a brief period of time. Finally, some people believe that the Black Dahlia murder is linked to serial killings like the Chicago lipstick murders or the Cleveland torso murders. While theories will continue to be put forward, the identity of Elizabeth Short's killer remains a haunting mystery. Who was Jack the Ripper? In the late 1800s, a mysterious figure stalked the shadows, haunting the nightmares of every Londoner, especially those in his stomping grounds of Whitechapel. He went by the name of Jack the Ripper, an elusive serial killer who brutally murdered at least 5 women, leaving behind a grisly legacy. His identity remains a mystery, but countless theories have been proposed over the years, some more plausible than others. One popular theory among ripperologists is that Jack the Ripper was actually Aaron Kosminski, a Polish hairdresser living in Whitechapel. Walter Sickert, a prominent artist of the era, was also implicated as a potential suspect. He was known to have a morbid fascination with the murders and even painted several pieces inspired by the events, but he was not brought up as a potential suspect until the 1970s, so not much evidence can connect him to the murders. According to this theory, Queen Victoria's grandson, Prince Albert Victor, was Jack the Ripper, driven mad by syphilis. Although this theory is a juicy one, it's pretty definitively untrue, as the prince was out of town for many of the murders. What is the purpose of Stonehenge? Scholars and enthusiasts alike have spent countless hours trying to unravel the mysteries of Stonehenge. What was its purpose, and why was it built? One popular theory posits that Stonehenge was a celestial observatory, built to track the movement of the sun, moon, and stars, as its central axis aligned with the midsummer sunrise and midwinter sunset. Another theory considers Stonehenge to be a sacred burial ground. Over the years, excavations have unearthed numerous cremated human remains, indicating that the site may have been used for funerary rituals. Delving deeper into the realm of spirituality, some theories propose that Stonehenge was a nexus of religious or ceremonial activity. Druids, the enigmatic Celtic priests, have often been associated with the monument, although Stonehenge predates their civilization by centuries. We're sure that as we continue to study and explore this enigmatic monument, new theories and discoveries will emerge. Who killed JFK? On November 22, 1963, the world came to a standstill as the news reverberated around the globe. President John F. Kennedy had been assassinated. Despite the official conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, countless alternative theories have emerged over the years. One of the most enduring conspiracy theories implicates the American Mafia in the assassination of JFK. Another suggests a different sort of organization. The U.S. government itself. Proponents of this theory argue that Kennedy's progressive policies and his intention to withdraw troops from Vietnam threatened the interests of those who stood to profit from continued conflict. Despite the myriad of conspiracy theories that have emerged over the years, the official narrative has never been disproven. Though Lee Harvey Oswald's exact motivations remain unclear, it is possible that we may never uncover the full truth behind the tragic events of November 22, 1963. Where is the lost city of Atlantis? First mentioned by the philosopher Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, the fabled city of Atlantis was said to have sunk beneath the waves in a single day of catastrophic earthquakes and floods. So where is Atlantis, if it even exists? The Greek island of Santorini is actually the remnant of a massive volcanic eruption that occurred around 1600 BCE, and some believe that this cataclysmic event, which destroyed the Minoan civilization on nearby Crete, is also what sunk Atlantis, which now would be nearby under the Mediterranean Sea. Others note that underwater structures have been discovered in the Caribbean, suggesting that they could be the ruins of the fabled city. In a more unconventional twist, some researchers suggest that Atlantis may have been located in the heart of the Sahara Desert. The Rikat structure, also known as the Eye of the Sahara, is a striking geological formation that bears a striking resemblance to Plato's description of the concentric rings of water and land that characterized Atlantis. Lastly, and most probably, is the theory that Atlantis was an invention of Plato. If this is the case, the search for Atlantis is just a wild goose chase. What caused the dancing plague of 1518? In the summer of 1518, the streets of Strasbourg, France bore witness to a strange phenomenon: dancing. Lots and lots of dancing. Over the course of several weeks, hundreds of people were seized by an uncontrollable urge to dance, their frenzied movements continuing day and night until they succumbed to exhaustion, injury, or even death. The cause of this strange and deadly outbreak has puzzled historians and scientists for centuries. Some researchers propose that the dancing epidemic was the result of mass hysteria or mass psychogenic illness, triggered by the immense stress and anxiety experienced by the people of Strasbourg at the time. Faced with the harsh realities of famine, disease, and political turmoil, the citizens may have succumbed to a collective delusion. Others suggest that the dancers were under the influence of a hallucinogenic substance, perhaps caused by fungus introduced by a bread of flour. Or, finally, could this have truly been a supernatural occurrence? What happened to the Ark of the Covenant? The Ark of the Covenant, described in the Bible as a gold-plated wooden chest containing the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments, has captured the imagination of scholars, treasure hunters, and adventurers for centuries. As the centuries-old quest for the Ark continues, countless theories have emerged to explain its enigmatic disappearance. Some say that the Ark was secreted away to the ancient city of Jerusalem for safekeeping. Another possibility is that the Ark was taken to Ethiopia, finding sanctuary within the sacred confines of the ancient city of Aksum. According to Ethiopian folklore, the Ark was spirited away by the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, who founded a new dynasty in Ethiopia. Finally, some suggest that the Ark of the Covenant may have been a symbolic construct rather than a tangible artifact, in which case, it's been nowhere and gone nowhere. What happened to the lost colony of Roanoke? In 1587, the winds of adventure carried a group of English settlers across the vast Atlantic to the shores of North Carolina. However, when a supply ship returned in 1590, they discovered an eerie, abandoned settlement and a single word etched into a tree: Croton. A popular theory among historians is that the colonists, faced with dwindling supplies and harsh conditions, sought refuge with the local Croton tribe that inhabited the nearby Hatteras Island. However, could the settlers have so fully integrated with the tribe within a mere 3 years that there would have been no sign of them in 1590? Another theory suggests that the colonists fell victim to a conflict with the Croton tribe, but this would be unexpected as their relationship at the time was amicable. A third theory posits that the settlers, realizing the precarious nature of their situation, abandoned Roanoke in search of a more sustainable location, and succumbed to the elements. Who is the Zodiac Killer? In the late 1960s, the Zodiac Killer, a name that would become synonymous with terror and mystery, started wreaking havoc in California. They would go on to claim the lives of at least 5 victims and send taunting, cryptic messages to the press. Though the identity of the Zodiac Killer is still unconfirmed, the name Arthur Lee Allen has become inextricably linked with the case. A series of circumstantial evidence, including a suspiciously timed wristwatch, a fascination with cryptograms, and the damning testimony of a former friend, placed Allen squarely in the crosshairs of the investigators. Although he was never charged due to a lack of concrete evidence, Allen remains a popular suspect among amateur sleuths and Zodiac enthusiasts alike. Another individual who found himself under the scrutiny of Zodiac hunters was Richard Gaikowski, a journalist and counterculture figure in the San Francisco Bay Area. Gaikowski's presence at key locations during the time of the murders, coupled with his familiarity with the press, raised suspicions about his possible involvement. Other proposed suspects are Ross Sullivan and Earl Van Best Jr., but an additional theory is that the Zodiac Killer was not just one person, but rather a twisted group effort between multiple individuals. Though certainly chilling, this theory lacks the hard evidence needed to gain widespread acceptance. Who and where is D.B. Cooper? D.B. Cooper is the byname for the unidentified person responsible for the 1971 hijacking of Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, although the pseudonym the hijacker went by was actually Dan Cooper. Claiming to have a bomb, Cooper demanded $200,000 in ransom and parachuted into the night, never to be seen again. Due to the weather at the time and the parachute landing zone, many speculate that Cooper did not survive the drop. On the other hand, over 1,000 potential suspects have been processed by the FBI, but with barely more than a composite sketch to go on, who can be sure? What happened to Amelia Earhart? Born in 1897 in Atchison, Kansas, Amelia Earhart was a groundbreaking pilot and feminist icon. She set numerous altitude and speed records throughout her career in the aviation world, and was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. In June 1937, Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, set out on a 29,000-mile journey to travel across the globe, a voyage they would never finish. In July, while attempting to locate the remote Howland Island in the Pacific Ocean, contact with Earhart's plane was suddenly lost. Despite extensive search efforts, no trace of Earhart and Noonan was ever found. One theory is that they crash-landed into the Pacific and drowned. Another is that they made an emergency landing on the nearby uninhabited island of Nikumaroro, eventually succumbing to the elements. The discovery of various artifacts on the island, such as clothing remnants, has lent credence to this theory, but nothing conclusive has been found. What happened to the Mary Celeste? In December 1872, the Mary Celeste was found drifting aimlessly in the Atlantic Ocean. The sails are up, and the captain's logbook is still on board, along with a 6-month supply of food and water. The only thing missing: the captain and crew. The Mary Celeste has become one of the greatest maritime mysteries of all time. What happened to the crew? Why did they abandon the ship? Some people believe that there was a mutiny on board that went terribly wrong. However, there were no signs of a struggle on board, which also ruled out the possibility of a pirate attack. One of the most plausible explanations for the crew's disappearance is that they were overcome by alcohol fumes. The Mary Celeste was carrying over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, which can produce dangerous fumes if not handled correctly. Perhaps the crew opened a hatch to ventilate the shop, and the fumes overwhelmed them. However, this theory doesn't explain why the crew would have abandoned the ship without taking any supplies or equipment with them. What is the Voynich manuscript? The Voynich manuscript is a mysterious handwritten book, filled with strange illustrations, bizarre symbols, and indecipherable text. It's named after Wilfred Voynich, a book dealer who acquired it in 1912, and has since been the subject of countless theories, speculation, and debate. One of the most puzzling aspects of the manuscript is that no one has been able to decipher it. Despite the efforts of many scholars and codebreakers, the text remains stubbornly indecipherable. Some believe that the manuscript is a hoax, while others argue that it's a genuine world of encryption that's simply too complex to unravel. As to the purpose of the Voynich manuscript, some think it's a medical or herbal guide, as many of the illustrations depict various plants. Others argue that it's a religious or philosophical treatise, or astrological text. Or maybe it's just an elaborate practical joke. What happened to the USS Cyclops? It was March 4, 1918, and the massive USS Cyclops was on a routine voyage from Brazil to Baltimore, with over 300 crew members on board. But the Cyclops would never arrive in Baltimore, and no trace of its crew would ever be found. A prevailing history is that the Cyclops was lost in a storm. The ship was known to be top-heavy and prone to listing, but due to the fact that it disappeared during World War I, some favor the belief that the Cyclops was sunk by a German U-boat. One of the most plausible theories is that the Cyclops was simply overloaded. Although it had been approved for its journey to Baltimore, reports show that the ship's water level was over the Plimsoll line, indicating overweight cargo. While this could have caused the ship to become unbalanced and ultimately sink, it doesn't explain why no wreckage or debris was ever found. While we may never fully know the fate of the USS Cyclops, it's interesting to note that it had three sister ships, the Jupiter, the Proteus, and the Nereus, all of which were also lost without a trace. What transpired at Hinterkaifeck? The evening of March 31, 1922, was like any other in rural Bavaria, until the tranquility was shattered by the violent murders of 6 residents of the Hinterkaifeck farm: Andreas Gruber, his wife Casilia, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, Victoria's children, and their maid Maria Baumgartner. The perpetrator carried out a chilling massacre using a mattock, a farming tool similar to a pickaxe, and disappeared without a trace. Several days before the murders, Andreas told neighbors about hearing footsteps in the attic and discovering a strange newspaper on the property. Their previous maid had also claimed the farm was haunted. Coincidence or clue? The Grubers' isolated location, the chilling prelude to the murders, and the violent nature of the crime itself have fueled an unending system of theories. Some point to Lorenz Schlittenbauer, a neighboring farmer who was rumored to have had a relationship with Victoria, and was one of the first to discover the bodies. Others believe that Karl, Victoria's husband, didn't actually die in the war but returned to find Victoria with another man's child, and committed the murders in a fit of rage. Theories also point to transient workers or robbers attracted by the scheduled location of the farm. However, this theory is challenged by the fact that no valuables were taken from the house, and the farm animals were cared for in the days following the murders. Despite the best efforts of investigators and amateur sleuths, the truth of what happened at Hinterkaifeck has been elusive. The case was officially closed in 1955, but it remains one of Germany's most chilling and infamous unsolved murders. Why were the Nazca lines created? Enigmatic symbols etched into the desert, visible only from the sky. The Nazca lines, located in the arid Peruvian coastal plain, some 400 kilometers south of Lima, have intrigued and bewildered scholars, historians, and enthusiasts for centuries. Why were these vast geoglyphs, some stretching more than 9 kilometers, crafted? One of the most popular theories revolves around astronomy. Maria Reich, a German mathematician and archaeologist, suggested that the lines served as a giant astronomical calendar, with each figure corresponding to a different celestial body or event. The spider, for instance, was said to represent the constellation Orion. This theory, while fascinating, has drawn skepticism due to the lack of consensus among experts about the correlation between the lines and celestial bodies. Others proposed that the lines were a plea to the gods. With the Nazca culture heavily reliant on the unpredictable weather, it suggested that the lines were an appeal for water and fertility. The geoglyphs, in this view, were part of a grand ritual to win the favor of deities who could quench the arid desert and ensure the survival of the Nazca people. Despite countless investigations and a myriad of theories, The truth behind the Nazca lines remains shrouded in mystery. Where is Cleopatra's tomb? Egyptologists and historians have long been enticed by the question, where is Cleopatra's tomb? Chroniclers of the era suggest that Cleopatra was buried with her lover Mark Antony, but the exact location remains a mystery that has eluded generations of scholars. One popular theory suggests that Cleopatra and Antony could be buried in a temple known as Taposiris Magna, about 45 kilometers west of Alexandria. Over the years, this site has yielded many significant artifacts, including statues, pottery, and jewelry that hint at the presence of royal inhabitants. Led by archaeologist Kathleen Martinez, this site has been extensively excavated, and yet, the tomb of the star-crossed lovers remains elusive. Another potential location is somewhere within the city of Alexandria itself, as this is where Cleopatra reigned. Due to extensive reconstruction, Cleopatra's tomb is hidden here and could be buried deep beneath the modern city. And so the quest for Cleopatra's tomb continues, fueled by fascination and the allure of one of history's most captivating figures. What is the origin of the Shroud of Turin? The Shroud of Turin is a centuries-old piece of linen with the faint, ghostly image of a crucified man, which has spawned countless theories, investigations, and debates. Many believers maintain that the image was miraculously imprinted on the shroud at the moment of Christ's resurrection. Skeptics, however, point out that no scientific process could explain such a divine event. Another theory suggests that the shroud is nothing more than a clever medieval forgery, created to attract pilgrims and their generous donations. The controversial 1988 carbon dating, which suggested the shroud was created between 1260 and 1390, fuels this theory. Critics, however, argue that the sample used for the test was contaminated or taken from a repaired area of the shroud, thus skewing the results. Others assert that the Templars, or even Leonardo da Vinci, were involved in early forms of photography and that the shroud was a result of their experiments. What happened at Dyatlov Pass? The Dyatlov Pass incident has puzzled investigators and armchair detectives alike for more than 6 decades. The circumstances of the deaths of these 9 experienced hikers were so strange that they gave birth to a plethora of theories, each more fascinating and eerie than the last. The most widely known explanation suggests that an avalanche caught the hikers off guard while they slept. Panicked, they cut their way out of their tents and fled down the mountainside, only to perish in the freezing temperatures. Yet no obvious signs of an avalanche were ever found by the rescuers. Others blame a sudden panic caused by the roar of katabatic wind, or infrared sound. Some believe that the Soviet military was testing secret weapons in the area and that the hikers were unfortunate enough to witness or fall victim to one of these tests. This theory is bolstered by reports of glowing orange orbs in the sky on the night of the incident. However, hard evidence for this theory remains as elusive as the truth itself. What caused the Tunguska event? On June 30, 1908, deep within the remote wilderness of Siberia, a deafening explosion occurred. The shockwave, rippling outwards with a force estimated to be 1,000 times more potent than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima, flattened nearly 80 million trees over an area of 2,150 square kilometers. But what caused this devastation? Initially, many believed that the culprit was a meteorite, but a series of expeditions to the site found no impact crater, nor any fragments of extraterrestrial rock. Others suggest a comet made of ice or dust, while more fanciful theories involving black holes and even alien spacecraft. Despite over a century of investigation and debate, the Tunguska event continues to fascinate and puzzle scientists. Who committed the Fall River Axe murders? On August 4, 1892, a gruesome crime shocked the quiet city of Fall River, Massachusetts. The victims were Andrew Borden, a wealthy businessman, and his wife, Abby. They were found brutally murdered in their home, their skulls almost unrecognizably shattered from multiple hatchet blows. The prime suspect was their own daughter, Lizzie Borden, a Sunday school teacher of previously unblemished reputation. thanks to her strange behavior on the day of the murders, the contradictory accounts she gave to the police, and her alleged attempt to purchase poison just days before the killings. The prosecution was able to build a compelling case against Lizzie. However, there was no physical evidence tying Lizzie to the crime. There were no bloodstains on her clothing, and the supposed murder weapon lacked a bloody handle. In the end, after just an hour and a half of deliberation, the jury acquitted Lizzie Borden, citing a lack of evidence. Despite her acquittal, suspicion continued to shadow her until her death in 1927. The Fall River Axe murders remain one of the most notorious unsolved mysteries in American history, continuing to inspire debate and speculation. How were the Egyptian pyramids built? The pyramids of Egypt, especially the Great Pyramid of Khufu, are among humanity's most awe-inspiring creations. For centuries, these magnificent structures have sparked speculation, prompting the inevitable question: how on earth were they built? The precise methods used by the ancient Egyptians remain shrouded in mystery, but modern research and archaeological findings offer some clues. Transporting these massive stones to the construction site was a monumental challenge in itself. The ancient Egyptians likely used sledges, which they dragged over wet sand to reduce friction. Evidence also suggests they used boats to transport stones along the Nile, taking advantage of the river's natural power. Once the stones arrived at the site, the real work began. They likely used a system of ramps to move blocks to the necessary height, though the exact design and layout of these ramps are subjects of ongoing debate. The project would have required coordinating the efforts of thousands of workers, managing resources over a span of decades, and maintaining precise architectural plans. Who was the Istal woman, and how did she die? On a chilly November afternoon in 1970, a father and his two daughters made a grim discovery while hiking through the Istalen near Bergen, Norway. Found among the rocky terrain was a charred woman's body, and around her lay an array of puzzling items: jewelry, a watch, and remnants of clothing, all also scorched. Strangely, any labels that could provide identification or traceability had been meticulously removed. Even more baffling were the sleeping pills, the distinct aroma of burnt flesh, and the remnants of alcohol, all painting a macabre tableau that left investigators puzzled. Autopsy results suggested the woman had ingested a large number of sleeping pills before her death. Yet, the cause of death was deemed a combination of poisoning and burns. But who was she, and what had led her to her death? Despite an extensive investigation, involving composite sketches circulated in many countries and a broadcast on the German BBC, the woman's identity remained elusive. Theories abound. Was she a spy caught in the throes of the Cold War? An escaped criminal? A woman fleeing from a troubled past? To this day, no one knows for certain. Who is responsible for the Chicago Tylenol murders? In the fall of 1982, the city of Chicago was gripped by a wave of fear unlike any it had experienced before. It all started on September 29th, when 12-year-old Mary Kellerman complained of a cold and took a Tylenol capsule. Within hours, she tragically died. That same day, 27-year-old Adam Janis also unexpectedly died after taking Tylenol for minor chest pain. When his brother and sister-in-law took pills from the same bottle while mourning his loss, they too suddenly fell ill and passed away. Each victim had consumed extra-strength Tylenol shortly before their demise. Police swiftly discovered that the Tylenol capsules they'd ingested had been laced with deadly cyanide, causing panic to surge throughout the city. In the following days, 3 more people died under similar circumstances, bringing the death toll to 7. Terrified consumers across the country purged their medicine cabinets. The manufacturer, Johnson & Johnson, initiated a massive, unprecedented recall of approximately 31 million bottles of Tylenol, costing them over $100 million. The investigation that followed was exhaustive, but despite extensive efforts, the perpetrator was never found. Authorities discovered tampered Tylenol bottles in various stores, suggesting the killer had purchased bottles, poisoned them, and returned them to the shelves. Theories have swirled over the years, with various suspects investigated and subsequently cleared. The chilling fact remains: the Tylenol murders were never solved. and the cyanide poisoner remains a specter in the annals of American crime. Who wrote the Circleville letters? An unsettling reality befell the residents of Circleville, Ohio, in the late 1970s. The events that ensued, now known as the Circleville letter writer mystery, have since become the stuff of legend, a tale of anonymity, accusation, and unsolved intrigue. The initial target was Mary Gillespie, a school bus driver, who received an anonymous letter in 1976 warning her that the writer was aware of an alleged affair between her and the school superintendent. The writer demanded that she end the affair or face public exposure. Soon, Mary's husband, Ron Gillespie, also received a letter, threatening to broadcast the affair to the entire community. Similar letters started to arrive at the homes of friends, family, and the school board members. Then, the situation took a deadly turn. In August 1977, Ron Gillespie received a phone call that seemed to indicate the identity of the letter writer. Enraged, he left his house with a gun, only to be found later in his car, dead from a crash and a single gunshot. The letters didn't stop, even after a prime suspect, Paul Freshour, Mary's brother-in-law, was arrested and imprisoned. They weren't just postmarked from Circleville anymore, but from nearby Columbus as well, only deepening the mystery. This enigma has given rise to numerous theories, each more riveting than the last. Was it a scorned lover, a jealous spouse, a disgusted community member, or someone else entirely? Who robbed the Gardner Museum? The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston, Massachusetts, was a treasure trove of classic art. It boasted works by masters such as Vermeer, Rembrandt, and Manet. These masterpieces, nestled within the museum's Venetian-style palazzo, were about to become the target of the largest art heist in history. The plot unfurled with a cinematic flair on St. Patrick's Day, 1990. Two men dressed as Boston police officers approached the museum, claiming they were responding to a disturbance call, and the guards, unsuspectingly, let them in. The fake officers quickly overpowered the guards, tied them up, and left them in the basement. They then made a sweep of the museum, slicing priceless paintings out of their frames. In under 2 hours, they stole 13 works of art, worth an estimated $500 million, including Vermeer's The Concert, one of only 34 known Vermeers in existence, and Rembrandt's only seascape, The Storm on the Sea of Galilee. Despite the best efforts of the FBI, over 3 decades later, the stolen artwork remains missing. The museum has offered a reward of $10 million for information leading to the recovery of the artworks, so if you have any leads, let them know. Where is the buried Beale treasure? In 1818, Thomas J. Beale and a group of fellow adventurers allegedly stumbled upon a vast deposit of gold and silver in the Rocky Mountains during a hunting trip. Enthralled by the prospect of their newfound wealth, they spent the next 2 years mining and transporting the treasure back to Virginia. Beale decided to bury it in a secure location, later known as Beale's Vault, somewhere in Bedford County, Virginia. Then, understanding the importance of ensuring his group's heirs could access the fortune if anything happened to them, he crafted 3 ciphers. The first cipher supposedly reveals the exact location of the treasure, the second describes the contents of the treasure, and the third discloses the names and contact information of the treasure's rightful heirs. Intriguingly, only one of the 3 ciphers has ever been decoded, the one describing the contents of the treasure, which is possibly the least helpful and most tantalizing. Will the other 2 ever be solved? Is there really a fortune buried in Bedford County, waiting to be unearthed? Or is this an elaborate hoax, a tale spun by a master storyteller? As long as the ciphers remain unsolved, the mystery of the Beale treasure continues. Who robbed Belfast Bank? On the morning of December 20, 2004, the employees of the Northern Bank headquarters in Belfast, Northern Ireland, were preparing for another ordinary workday, not knowing that the night before, 2 groups of armed men had taken bank officials hostage. With their families under threat, the bank officials were forced to act as accomplices in the heist. On December 20th, after the bank closed to the public, one of the officials let the robbers into the bank through a side door. Over the course of the evening, they moved around $33 million in cash from the bank's vaults into a white van parked nearby. Meanwhile, across the city, the bank officials' families were thankfully released unharmed, while the thieves made their escape. Though an investigation was quickly set in motion, the trail went cold fast. Despite a few arrests and the recovery of a small amount of the stolen money, the culprits were never brought to justice, and the bulk of the stolen funds remains missing. To this day, the heist remains one of the biggest unsolved bank robberies in UK history, a testament to the audacious robbers who vanished into thin air, leaving behind a mystery that continues to baffle. Where are the diamonds from the Antwerp diamond heist? The city of Antwerp has long been a magnet for gem enthusiasts, with more than 80% of the world's rough diamonds passing through its prestigious Diamond Quarter. In February 2003, the Diamond District would be left reeling after what was later dubbed the heist of the century, masterminded by a group known as the School of Turin. The group's ringleader was Leonardo Notarbartolo, who spent years laying the groundwork for the heist, renting an office at the Antwerp Diamond Center and posing as a successful merchant. On the day of the heist, the group used a homemade device to bypass the security systems without triggering any alarms. The heist was executed with such precision and stealth that the authorities were left dumbfounded. That is, until they found a half-eaten sandwich with DNA evidence. The investigation that followed led to the eventual arrest of Notarbartolo and his associates, yet the vast majority of the stolen diamonds remained unaccounted for, fueling speculation about their fate. Some believe that they have been sold on the black market, while others argue that they are hidden away in a secret location, waiting to be unearthed. Before I get to the last one, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's get to it. What happened to the lighthouse keepers of Eilean Mor? In December of 1900, the lighthouse of Eilean Mor was manned by three keepers, James Duckett, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur, whose responsibility it was to ensure the light never went out. On the 26th, the Hesperus was due to arrive to resupply the lighthouse, but as it neared the island, Captain James Harvey noticed something amiss. The lighthouse was dark. A member of the Hesperus crew, Joseph Moore, was dispatched to investigate. He returned pale and shaken, reporting that the lighthouse was deserted. The clock had stopped, the beds were unused, and there was a half-eaten meal on the table. Subsequent investigations deepened the mystery. The lighthouse log told a tale of a severe storm on December 14th, with Duckett and Marshall fearfully noting the powerful winds and their dread of the coming tempest. However, weather reports from that date indicated that no such storm had occurred. Their final log entry, on December 15th, was a calm statement of the storm ending and God being over all. After that, no further entries. Numerous theories have attempted to explain the disappearance of the lighthouse keepers. Did they get swept away by a rogue wave while securing some equipment? Did one of them go mad, murder the others, and then throw himself into the sea? Did something otherworldly occur? Each theory is as plausible and implausible as the next, and without any witnesses or concrete evidence, the truth remains elusive.